All right, thank you for staying with us. Right, we always have interesting conversations behind the scene. But I must let you know that we still have our guests in the studio talking about a security consultant, Darlington Umoru, as well as a military veteran and security consultant, Dr. Roy Ohidiebe. We're looking at the situation or developing situation in Gabon. And before we went on the break, Darlington was talking to us how it is that at the heart of this is the Constitution allowing the leaders in Gabon to have an extended stay of about 7 years, which until recently was amended to 5 years by the president, the ousted president, Ali Bongo. But let me come to you now, Dr. Roy, your perception of what is the underlying issue or the undercurrent triggering this recent matter of coups that we are seeing across some of these African countries.
Okay, thank you very much. And I was just enjoying the flow from our dear chief and the passion and everything. You see, the stopgap is actually true. Whenever there is a matter like this, everything comes to a pause. You know about economy pause, we know about progression pause, development pause, and you have to start afresh again from somewhere. But the truth is, we are looking at Bongo and his father. We are forgetting that his grandfather was the prime minister. So that he is the one that also took over from the exiting colonial masters.
Yes.
So you have a generation of 3 heads there. So when we talk about the Constitution, we'll begin to understand that at that time and those periods, there's already an internal say. And it's not just the family we are talking about now. There are benefactors. There are those that benefit from somebody being in power and compromising the majority.
Right.
So if you see the reaction of the people, you will understand that it gets to a point where human beings thirst for water. They get thirsty for water, they get thirsty for better life, And if the military that we talk about today, if you want to really assess the military, you will see that the idea that the military is for territorial integrity, hey, hold on, let's do our this, has been sold. How? Over time, the police has been collapsed. Everything you see happening around the president, the presidency, the governors, any kind of fracas in a town, in a village, they don't step in. We call them.
We invite them in.
Yes, it's an instruction. The governor calls and one commander is told to boss that place.
Right.
Against you have not exhausted the policing strategies, so that is not the military's fault. That's for one. Number two, when military officers retire, the same civilians, when they formulate a government, they quickly call them. That's what we didn't see in this one. You give them high-profile positions and say, you are going to be our president. You fought against corruption. You are a strong corruption antidote. And we bring back the military in pseudo-civilian clothes. So for Africa right now, we're bothered that the narrative on the Niger Republic was not properly handled. My concern then, before it escalated to this, was that AU is like a mother body over ECOWAS, and maybe we should have Economic Community of East African States and others. It still falls under the African Union. Now, we have other countries in Africa that are already existing as military juntas, military rule. And the worst ECOWAS could do was to suspend them. Now, if ECOWAS suspended them, what was AU's role to play? Because
monitoring the situation.
Yes, so I told you that these two organizations have been made puppeteers when we started to have the United Nations. United Nations first, the United Nations Human Rights, the World Bank,
signing
so
charters,
everything consumed, because we went for peacekeeping, and in the peacekeeping we're going as ECOMOG. And before you know what's happening, the UN came, changed the beret to blue, and everybody falls under the United Nations. You know, so it took a strategy to absorb strategic deployment of troops from the Africans themselves. So I don't blame, if you want to look at our problem, you should look at Africans. Right from slave trade, it was Africans that maneuvered the Africans that were taken away. The Oyibo that came could not communicate. It was Africans that were interpreters that were showing the way and packing them into the ships. So if we want to come back to coup d'etat, I will say this: silence is consent. Most people agree in 90% of cases, silence is consent. Now, in the law too, they used to tell us, what did you do when this? Well, I didn't do anything. You agreed. Okay, so what did AU do when ECOWAS and suspended those other juntas? Now that you want to look at Niger Republic, to stop Gabon and boom, others picking up, what did you do? Right. So nothing has been done. Now, if you also look at the Niger Republic itself, the first step we took was to annoy other people that were also expecting and hold the military regime. And they say, we are with Niger Republic, come in and kill all of us. Because you started by throwing the stick instead of the carrot. You were not discussing, you were going with the stick. You said we're going to attack you. So the others said, attack us. Then those that are also suffering the elongated
attack was not the word. So that we put things in proper perspective. Attack was not the word. It was sanctions were given. Yes, talking about having a standby force, it is said that is the last resort.
Invade.
Last option.
Last option.
It's an option. If you put it last, if you put it anywhere, the prerogative to use it at any time can supersede other options depending on the unraveling of situations. I can say, pull him out of this place if he misbehaves, but give him water, give him food. Before you take the water and the food and you misbehave, you will be pulled out of that place. So your last option could be any option. Now let me go further to intervene in the good way he opened this topic. Where are other leaders that have issues with manipulating their constitution in their own countries? Where have they been when this abuse has been going on? We forget that the people's cry is not elongated stay. The people's cry is that our resources
are not
helping us, our lifestyle. So many people are doing the Japa syndrome. So many people are in France from those countries, and they are seeing what their resources is doing there. Lighting, healthcare, good roads, accommodation. They could breathe according to the current language that is flying now. So if they could breathe and they are taking oxygen from us, how come they didn't give us a little so that we could breathe also? So if I see a university in France, I come to Niger Republic, I see the same university. They are speaking the same language right now. They have forfeited their language, and their general language is French. So if the resources manipulated out does not have any benefiting revert to their lifestyle, then they will revolt no matter who sits there. Then if you look at the constitution you are talking about, now, if a constitution abuses itself, meaning that those in power abusing the constitution, where was ECOWAS? Where was AU?
The big question, where were they? Because if you look at the papers this morning, they have been speaking with regards to the issues, the development in Gabon. And questions have been asked. In fact, one paper had a long list of presidents who have been in power for quite a while. Let me just mention a few of them. It says the top longest serving African presidents. We have Teodoro Obiang Mbasogo, who has been there for 43 years, Equatorial Guinea. Paul Biya, 40 years, Cameroon. Denis Sassou Nguesso, 38 years, Congo. And then we have Yoweri Museveni, 37 years, Uganda, just to mention a few of them. And the question has been, where is African Union? How is it that African Union is not speaking to these persons with regards to these issues? Why is it that you wait until there is a coup or a situation and then you begin to speak? You're looking at sanctions. You're not looking at, okay, how do you amend this constitution in favor of the people? What are you really doing for the betterment of democracy? Because the concern right now is that democracy is being threatened in Africa.
African leaders themselves are our problems. We have not had that leadership in parentheses where the likes of Nkrumah were looking forward to a continental strength, the unity of the continent. Today, most African leaders have sold out. They are directly either being controlled or being led by their colonial masters. Most of them are answerable to their colonial masters. And they are manipulated. And their economy is also manipulated. A lot of things are taken away from them, and then in return, poverty is given to them. You're talking of the AU. AU has almost become like a toothless bulldog that is only ready to back at a time when there's crisis, but not really looking at the basic issues that can bring Africa as a continent together and stand as a force against some other continent like the West and America. But where do we find ourselves? I tell you, Africa as a continent, the day the likes of Muammar Gaddafi will come up again and begin to propagate the likes of Nkrumah, the likes of the former president of South Africa, the late man now,
Nelson
Mandela. Up until we have leaders who will look beyond the interest of their country and selfish interests to begin to look at what happens in the continent and where the continent can stand as a bloc. We'll continue to get it wrong. Now, look at what is happening now. The coup threat now is flying higher in the Francophone countries.
Yes.
It meant that one Francophone country is in it and has survived. Another is in it and has survived it. And another has gone into it and has survived it. And so the rest of them will be looking at the possibility of following. Once upon a time on the continent of Africa, this same issue cuts across basically most Anglophone countries. And they have survived that. But the issue of sitting in power, and then you alone and you yourself and your family want to remain and inherit power. Ali inherited power from Omar. Omar inherited power from his own father. And it has been on that line. And then basically what people are really looking at is between 1967 and 2023. You have two men who have been in leadership for 50-something years.
Yes.
And so, with a population of about 2 million or thereabout, with the huge mineral resources deposited in Gabon, they have oil, they have agriculture, and yet the people, just about 2 million.
2 million.